So Patients Engage is a platform that seeks to inform, engage, empower patients and caregivers. Today's focus is living better after cancer and how young adults adapt to new realities. Our panelists today are Gauri, who's had Ewing sarcoma and she's been cancer-free for 9 years. Pranay, who had non-Hodgkins lymphoma and in remission for over a year. And our psycho-oncologist for the panel today is Aneri Shah. She works with, consults with HCG Ahmedabad. And I am Aparna Mittal, I'm the moderator. So I think I'll ask you to just introduce yourself as to, what city you're from and what you enjoy doing. Just to start with you, Gauri.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good to connect on Patient Engage webinar today with all of you. I'm Gauri. I am currently based out of Mumbai, and as Aparna mentioned, I've been cancer-free for 9+ years now, and I love traveling, and that's something that keeps me going on.
Good. Pranay.
Hi, I'm Pranay. I'm from Bombay, and thanks for having me on this webinar. I've been cancer-free for about 14 months now, and I'm in advertising, but what keeps me really interested is learning about South Africa, and that's a dream to go there and make a documentary. So
okay.
That inspires me. Yeah.
Excellent. Aneri?
So I look after all the emotional aspects pertaining to the cancer and the treatment for patients as well as their caregivers. And I work with HCG Cancer Center Ahmedabad. What keeps me going is I love jogging and playing my tennis. So
Great. So we'll start with the first question. I think one of the commonest sentiments that most people go through during cancer and sometimes even after is the question of why me, right? So I think I have yet to come across somebody who didn't go through a period of that question as to why me. So if you can let people share your views in terms of what you went through and how you dealt with it, and what would be your suggestions for somebody going through that phase where they're still asking why me. Do you want to start, Gauri, again?
Yes. So yes, as Aparna said, this is the most common question that comes to your mind right when you hear about the diagnosis, and that's what happened with me as well. And I remember asking this question to my doctor because I had started looking back and thinking, what have I done wrong? So I don't smoke, and I exercise, I eat healthy. And the doctor just said that your cells just misbehaved, which was beyond my control. And I think at this phase you also start looking back in terms of good karma, bad karma. You start analyzing what have you done wrong in life. And I was thinking that I've not really cheated anyone, done anything bad, but this still happened to me. And this was bringing me down, but then I also looked at the other way in terms of people around me who were getting treated, and I realized that I was probably in a better position than many other people, which made me feel better because there were people whose treatment was not showing good results. Some people were going through an amputation. So I think looking at the other perspective made me feel better and continue with the treatment instead of just hanging on the question of why me.
Great. Pranay, did you go through the same?
Yeah. So the thing is that so pre-cancer, I started losing a lot of weight, and gradually my eyes started becoming puffy, and I was a big smoker. And So I sort of figured that something is definitely wrong. And my initial diagnosis by my doctor was TB. So I was like, okay, 15, 20 days, maybe a month, I'll be fine. I can go back to office. And then when my PET scan was done and when my biopsy was done, and then that call came to a friend of mine who was with me at that point in time because my dad had gone to the biopsy center to figure what it was. And she just looked at me and she hugged me and said that it's cancer. And
Hmm.
my first reaction was like, so what? Am I going to die?
Hmm.
And I just laughed it off. I didn't know how to react. And then in my first chemo, it started hitting me. Why me? And it was almost like my doctor at that point told me that whatever is happening, we'll have to put you in the ICU. And those 3, 4 days that I was in the ICU, where I couldn't see anyone who I remotely knew, just like that time, it all hit me that maybe this is it. And gradually, then I realized that. I was in denial, and then the despair angle happened to me, and then I need to accept, and the decision is to overcome cancer. So that my first chemo treatment was actually where why me was the biggest roadblock in my life.
Right, right. And Aneri, from your experience, what would you suggest to, patients who are going through that?
Why me is a very, very important question to be dealt with, because unless that question is dealt with, the acceptance towards the disease and the treatment won't come.
Hmm.
Sooner the why me is dealt with, the better will be the coping. And as mentioned, that there are stages to this. So the first is denial, okay,
Right.
where people are. So first is denial, then you start bargaining that how either the treatment can be lessened, or you wish that it wasn't there. So there are various things to that. Then is so that anger also sets in along with the bargaining.
Right.
Then people may start feeling depressed because now they've come to the terms and the realization of this, and then comes the acceptance phase. It is not necessary that people do go through it in the similar sequence, but uh, these are some of the phases people may go through till the time they reach the acceptance phase.
Right.
If this question is not met with, it is more likely that people will be more preoccupied with the thoughts of cancer and the diagnosis. It will be difficult for them to normalize this situation for themselves, which
Right.
will make it even more difficult.
Okay. So moving on to kind of after cancer, or as the treatment progresses. So one of the challenges people face is in terms of uh, allowing friends and colleagues, especially work colleagues, to come and see them while they're going through treatment. um, you know Sometimes they're embarrassed because of the side effects of the treatment, or sometimes it could be that they're still not ready to have those conversations. So, again, how did you handle this, Pranay? And uh, you know, did you have did you ever wish that, did somebody say anything that made you think, I wish I hadn't asked that person to come and see me?
Aparna, I was in fact very clear that I wanted to meet only a limited number of people during my chemo cycles because obviously I'd lost a lot of weight and my facial hair and my head hair, even my eyelashes had disappeared. So luckily, people understood when my parents told them that don't come and meet him right now. Once he's at home, after his chemo cycles are done, so when he's recovering, that time will be a better time. So I had very close friends who sort of came and spoke to me and met me, and they all understood that what I was going through. So there was never that whole thing of people like sort of me feeling uncomfortable with people in and stuff. It was more like they were motivating me to get out of it really fast, and there was this constant reassurance that you're looking good, you're looking fine, things are on the rise. This is something good that's happened to you in terms of the chemo going on smoothly. So I was in a good space at that point in time in terms of friends helping me out, and work colleagues. I sort of kept them away, saying that you come and meet me later, not now.
Right, right.
because the thing is that people who understand you and who know what you've been through will obviously support you, but people who really don't know how to react when they hear a colleague or a acquaintance go through cancer, it's better to keep them away rather than they saying something out of turn, which sort of like puts you back in the position when cancer actually happened and you were in this why me phase. Because if you emotionally accepted it and you're moving on with the treatment in terms of a physical and a professional way, then you don't really need people who are going to get you back or sort of like pull you back in that emotional space.
Right, right, right. So your lesson essentially is be selective on who you kind of,
Yeah, definitely.
right,
People who understand what you're going through, just ask them to come and meet you, because otherwise you just
right,
be pulled back.
right. Gauri, from your perspective?
Yeah, so just like Pranay, my parents had guarded me from like a lot of people, and that was a good thing. But at the same time, there would be times where a relative would come and talk about how someone they knew died of cancer, which is like the worst thing to tell to a cancer patient. Or also suggest some, alternate therapies. You can try this, that. Um, and with friends, so yes, close friends were very supportive. They came and met me, and that used to cheer me up. But at the same time, there were a lot of awkward instances where friends would also not know what to say, because they just felt so sorry for me. And what would happen eventually is I would end up making them feel better, that it's okay, it's going to be fine.
Right, right. And yeah, so I think that's something that comes up quite often, that it's the patient who needs to take the lead in terms of setting the stage for the conversations that you want, or the what you are most comfortable with, right? So um, Aneri, on that, do you have any advice? Because this is something that I think the fact that patients get certain forwards, or somebody talks of somebody else's cancer issues, and often people don't realize that different cancers have different treatment protocols, and the staging makes a difference and all of that, right? It's just seen as one homogeneous cancer situation rather than.
Right. So I think this is one of the most important things to deal with again. There are a few points to this that even people who are visiting should understand, and even the patients should understand, or the caregivers should also understand. First thing being that each and every patient, I mean, they should be prepared in prior, ideally, to face these different social responses that people probably see. Almost probably 70 to 80% of people, they do talk about good things. But what is very important here is to understand the fact that the way it is new for the patient and their family, it is equally new for the visitors as well. Even for them, cancer is a new thing. They don't know much about it. So it's very difficult for them to talk about cancer, or even they feel that social awkwardness, that what should we ask, how should we respond. They are concerned probably, or because they feel they are responsible, they come and meet you. So, and another thing that Pranay was mentioning, that he was, or they were kept in a more protective environment. So for how long we will be in that kind of an environment, right? So it is important for every patient and the family members to be prepared in a way that you may come across certain social responses. However, the most important thing is to have the enough correct information, which will help them deal with all the different responses and reactions of people.
Right, right. Okay.
So if there is a preset, there is
Aparna,
a, yeah.
Sure, Pranay, go ahead.
yeah, so I actually agree with what Neri ma'am is saying. So the thing is that it depends on which cycle or which phase of that treatment are you in, and how much have you internalized what's happened to you? Because, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, because the thing is that if you've accepted what's happened to you and you know the treatment is right and you've like sort of logically come to terms with the treatment, then people coming and meeting you, or people like just giving their own versions of what it could be, or sort of putting it as a death sentence really doesn't matter, because you've coped up with it. So it's highly essential to understand and to know that what stage are you in terms of coping with this cancer.
Right,
Absolutely.
right.
So because for me initially it was like I didn't want to meet anyone because I really didn't know what am I going through, and death as a fear was always there in my head. So, and slowly when my chemo cycle started going on the up and I started recovering, then I didn't really mind meeting people because I knew what I've gone through and I know the way I'm recovering. So they can put whatever they think is off it, but it really doesn't matter to me because I'm on a road to recovery then.
Right, right. Okay. And in terms of, you were both working when you were diagnosed. So did you continue to work during the treatment, or you went on extended leave? How did you deal with that part of it? Gauri, you want to go first?
Yeah. So yes, I was working, and the day I was diagnosed, the next day I went to work and just informed my manager about this. And it was the first time I was actually saying that out loud, so it was not easy. And then I had packed up and left because the next day we had planned to come to Mumbai to Tata Memorial Hospital. So it was again a difficult feeling of not knowing when you're coming back, if you're coming back to work. And so I had actually decided to take a leave, extended leave, because even when I started treatment, it was quite challenging. And then there were times when the chemo was given that I had to be in an isolated environment to avoid catching any infection.
Right.
So yeah, so for about an year I was on leave till I completed treatment. And and then once everything was done, I was feeling good, I decided to go back to work.
Okay. Okay. So you did not consider options of working from home, etc. You just said, "I'll take my leave." And
Yeah, so I actually had discussed that with my doctor, and he said that it's up to you. But then when I started treatment, I realized that it was physically very taxing, and obviously emotionally as well. So I did not feel in the right mind to continue work. And at that time health was of utmost importance. Work and everything else was secondary.
Pranay, from your perspective, how did you handle
Yeah,
that?
Panas. So my thing is also very similar to Gauri's. I was lucky that I had taken my annual leave at the point when I was diagnosed with cancer. So I just like sort of phoned them up saying that there's something wrong and the cancer thing has happened to me. So I really won't be able to come to office. And so I was out for about 8 months, and my doctor told me that you can work from home, but emotionally, physically is one part of it that you really can't stretch yourself. But emotionally, if you're not in the space, then work automatically takes a backseat because it's all about recovering and being in that healthy frame of mind and physical health to go back to work. And for 6 months, I never thought about work. It was just like go through the chemos well, go through the radiation well, and everything will fall back into place. So it really wasn't on my in my head or on my list to go back to work like at the earliest and stuff.
Right, right. Aneri, from your perspective, you know, um, is it possible for patients to keep trying to work through the treatment, or it's recommended that they take time? Is there any one way to this, or each one has to decide kind of on their own?
It is definitely a subjective thing. Each one should decide on their own. But yes, there are people who do. I mean, it depends on your preference and how you are feeling. Like you finish your 1 or 2 cycles of your chemotherapy, and if your doctor has allowed you, you may visit after some number of days post your chemo cycles. That also may be feasible, doing some light natured work, or working from home. So it's not something that it is completely restricted. It depends on what chemotherapy drug you are on and stuff like that. So it definitely needs to be discussed. It shouldn't be completely ruled out that no, because I'm undergoing treatment, I may not be able to work at all.
Right, right. Okay. And how did the cancer journey change your, when you went back to work, how did it change your attitudes at work, your perspective? Pranay, you want to start on that?
So it was about 8 months that I wasn't going to work, and obviously when I started work, the whole thing was take it slow. Are you fit enough? Are you healthy enough? Can you cope up with work? And I actively didn't. So my job demands me to deal with clients. So for the first 1 month, I was just handling back end, reading stuff, and helping people out rather than facing people, so to speak. So the integration was slow. The integration was sort of, are you okay enough to be dealing with people and stuff? And somewhere it was also like your inner confidence to actually start facing to your own colleagues, forget clients. Because there are people who look at you in terms of, okay, you've been through something very big. Are you okay to come back to work? Is coming back to work an option in your life? Have you fully recovered? And there are quite a few people who are very ignorant in terms of what's happened to you. So they feel that this is the end of the journey. So are you like fit enough to even think about considering coming back to work? And also the physical aspect plays a role in terms of my head didn't totally grow back. So I used to wear a hat going to work and stuff. So like it was slow. It was a little sort of weird in the beginning, but as your confidence started coming in, as I realized that I can face up to challenges, then the integration was smoother.
Right, right. And Gauri, for you?
Yeah. So for me, like once I completed treatment, I think that's when like the doctor's role actively ends, and then you are on your own to get back to normal life, and there's no instruction to do that, so you have to figure it out on your own. So for me, the way to kind of come back to normal life was to throw myself into work. So initially, even though I was still recovering, I took it slow. I joined back the team that I was in earlier, so that gave me, some comfort. And the other part was also, in terms of how I looked. So I'd lost my hair. I was wearing a wig, and because the radiation was on my face was black. So I was hardly, recognizable. So when I went back to work, my team was very supportive, and but still there were moments I just wanted to like disappear. I didn't want to stand out at all. But as Pranay said, as time goes on, you start getting your confidence back. You start doing things that you like, and so yeah, I was able to then get back on track.
Right, right. And carrying on from there, you then went on to do your MBA, right, at a B school. So again, did you kind of did you have any doubts about whether you'd be able to handle the pressures of doing an MBA? And what thought process did you go through to go ahead with it, and then your experience there as well?
Yeah. So, for the first 2 years, I did not really think about doing anything more because, as I said, I was still on the path to recovery. But after that, once I started feeling well, I could take on a lot of work challenges. I had taken a lead on a new project. After that, I felt physically, mentally prepared to take on a bigger challenge. And that's how I decided to, apply for MBA. And so I always had that question, because it'll be so demanding. Will I be able to do it? So I think it took me an year to, finally say, yes, I feel completely prepared. So it was almost after 3 years of completing treatment that I decided to go for it. And I think once I was there, it was not a challenge at all. I was able to, manage everything as well as anyone else.
Right,
So
right. Good. And when you went there, did you let people know that you had been through? Because obviously you were meeting a whole new bunch of people who did not know that you'd been through cancer. So, did you talk about it? Did you let people know about it? How did that go?
So yeah, I think midway during, so it was a 1 year course, and around midway we had a leadership summit where we also had a platform where people could come and talk about their stories, some special stories that they had, and I had decided that I wanted to speak about it, and so I did, and like got a standing ovation from 300 people in the auditorium. So it was again a very special moment for me. And after that, I realized that I started getting a lot of compliments because I had spoken about how, even at the school, we fret over very small things like, if you've not been, you missed a grade by 2 marks, that will just depress people. So I spoke about, the perspective that there are bigger things in life and we should not fret over small things. And that kind of really resonated with my, classmates.
Right.
And but at the same time, I also felt that this kind of put me on a pedestal after that, even though I still wanted to be like a peer. I was one of them, but yeah, I could feel that they started looking at me differently. It was in a positive way, but I still wanted to be like on a level ground, because for me cancer is only one chapter of my life book. It's not how I would like to be identified all the time.
Right, right. Absolutely. So you felt that it kind of defined your identity more than you would have wanted it to.
Yes.
Aneri, I suspect that people, especially those who have childhood cancers or young people with cancer, have a bigger aspect around this, right? Or a bigger issue around it because they go into new environments as opposed to somebody in their 50s or 60s. What is your advice? Should they talk about it? Should they wait for the right time to talk about it? What's your view in terms of friendships and, I guess, to some extent, work as well?
Well, it depends. Again, it is a person to person thing. But people do feel more comfortable once that thing is out as well, because otherwise they always have this fear or the thing within them that I've not told about this very important thing that has happened to me in my life. Can't undo the experience that has happened. Each and every experience that we have, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, it very much is part of us, and that is what makes all of us the way we are. So depending on what relationship we share with the person, and what is our comfort level with them, and why it is important to share.
Right.
So I think if you are able to answer these questions, then I think a person can take a decision on whether to share or not. So there's no fixed answer as yes they should or yes they shouldn't.
Okay. And I'll just let people who are watching us know that if they have questions, they can start, typing them in or sharing in the chat window or on the Facebook feed. So let's talk about, again, since we're talking on young people, let's talk about marriage and dating, right? Again, when should you let the other person know, and how does this affect the relationship? And I think we'll start with you, Gauri. You've talked about this as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have, been still figuring out what is the right time to let someone know, about your medical history, because it is very important in a relationship. You don't want to hide it, but at the same time, you don't want to just start with it and put off someone also. So in the past, I've just tried different approaches to it.
Right.
And one thing that I've realized is definitely some people get shocked. For them, it is a really big deal. It is a deal breaker, which is okay. But I've also seen now a lot of people have been accepting, because probably even in the media there's so much talk about it. There's so many Bollywood stars who are coming out and talking about their cancer diagnosis. So it's become now a very common thing that ways. Um, at the same time, I feel that there's still some stigma around cancer. Some people also look down upon it for some reason, which I've not been able to understand. But till the time you are very positive about your story, how it has positively impacted you, I think the other person would, if they like you, they should be able to see it with the same perspective.
Go past that. Right?
Yeah. And even my doctors, have told me that, in case, you want to bring your partner or their family to us and talk about it, so that they have a good understanding in terms of, the medical impact of it, we are happy to, support you.
Right. That's very helpful, I think, from your doctor. Pranay, do you have anything to add before I go to Aneri?
So basically, I'm not in a relationship, so I can't comment on how that would impact cancer would impact the relationship. But from purely a friendship perspective, or purely from telling someone, I just take this one fear of if I'm sure that person not going to judge me, then I'm open enough to talk about it. And I really don't want sympathy coming in from people. So I just try to sort of figure that lens out, and then I'm more comfortable in having a conversation about it.
Okay. So Aneri, in your experience, what has been your experience in terms of the effect cancer has on marriage prospects or existing marriages? And in again your assessment, what's the reason for the concern?
So, for the ones who are from marriage perspective, it is important to reveal it. May not be at the earliest phase, but sometime down the line, not too later as well. So definitely it should be talked about. If they are accepting, they'll accept it anyways, and if they are not, it's good that we know it soon enough. And another thing is that from the ones who are already married and the ones who are going through this phase of cancer and the treatment, it depends on how the relationship has been shared previously.
Right.
Cancer does bring people closer as well, and it can take couples apart as well. So the communication is the most important thing in this. So I would say that there is stigma, and but it's not that people are not able to find partners. They are able to, and there are people who are very accepting of this aspect.
Right. And is there a role that counselors or should people go for marriage counseling or couple counseling to get through this phase, or not always required? Again, what's your view on that?
It may not be always required, but I think the one who's getting married should have that clarity on certain aspects, those pre-preparations in terms of what are the difficulties, or what are the insecurities my partner can have, and how can I reassure my partner. So what Gauri said, that speaking to the doctor, getting their questions resolved, I think everybody should do this if, I mean, possible, or have that kind of information. It will give reassurance to the partner and their family. So
Right.
then things may work out better. It shouldn't.
Right.
It may sound like a very small thing, or difficult thing to do sometimes. But that should not be the reason why people don't go ahead with these relationships.
Right. Yeah, Gauri.
So, on that, I remember one of my friends had told me that she had thyroid,
Mm.
and the guy's family did not want to go ahead because of thyroid. So, for me, it
It's
was
not
like,
just cancer.
yeah. So it's like, if I were in your place and I told them that I had cancer, they would just, probably faint.
Yeah, no, we've had people who have, for instance, type 1 diabetes, and they do have problems finding a partner as well. So I think the concern or the stigma, or I don't even know if it's stigma or it's just that, why go get into a relationship with somebody who has a illness seems to be a factor. Aneri, is fertility an issue? Because some treatments do have impact on fertility.
Yeah, that's it is definitely one of the things. But as we discussed, that these things should be clarified much in the beginning once you've decided to get into a relationship. And
Mm.
that's the reason why they should be, at least if they have these insecurities, they should talk to the doctor and go ahead with it. I mean,
Right.
more, it's all about reassurance at the end, in getting, when you are in the phase of getting into a relationship. Because yes, the treatments can impact the fertility, but these days there have been treatments which can preserve the fertility as well.
Mm.
So somebody who's scouting and has come across a patient, so somebody who's come out of these treatments shouldn't assume that the fertility can be an issue, because they could have well gone for a fertility preservation, and
Right. Right.
that should not be the reason.
Right. So one of the questions that's come in is on the role of support groups. I know Pranay said that he wasn't part of any support group. Gauri, were you at any stage during or after involved in support groups? And
So yeah, during my treatment, I really felt the need to connect with other patients, and young adults who were going through it, because I felt that it was a different kind of emotional turmoil that I was going through, given that I was 25. And and I really wanted people in the same age group who were going through it, so I could talk to them. But at that time in India, I was not really able to find any such support groups, and that's why I went online, and I was actually able to connect to international online support groups. And it was quite good, because uh, we could actually discuss our issues, but at the same time also come up with cancer jokes and laugh and have fun. uh, and then I think after treatment, then I connected with a few support groups and worked with them to kind of bridge the need that I had felt during the treatment.
right. Right. Okay. Aneri, you have anything to add to that? I think Gauri has covered most points, but
Yeah, but I think because we don't have so many trained people in psycho-oncology,
mm,
I wouldn't say that support group would suffice that need. But however, at least something is better than nothing at all. So people, we do see patients get more comfortable, and they feel less lonely when they are actually affiliated to these support groups. So
right.
you should out for one.
Right. And Gauri, coming back to your question, when you looked for support group, it wasn't necessarily the same cancer. It was just the age group that seemed that was important. Okay.
Yeah. And actually, when I started connecting, so as I said, these were international support groups, and I was able to find 2 or 3 Indians as well. But then I also wanted to connect with people from India, because I felt that was very different from what someone from the US or Europe is going through.
Right.
Even though probably physically we are having the same reactions to the treatment, but in terms of society and yeah, it was
the social context and the psychosocial aspects and those are quite unique.
Yeah.
Yeah,
most
Aneri.
important thing to remember when you are joining a support group is that when you hear other patients, see your fellow patient may be doing good or may not be doing good at any point. So you should be careful of that aspect as well, that each and every individual is very, very different. Their treatments differ as well, even though they are on the similar lines. Your bodies are different, so you should be able to draw that line.
Right. So another question that's come up is, in terms of, I think we've covered this a little bit, but if there's anything else, Aneri, you'd like to add on role of counseling in motivating young adults going through cancer?
I think it does play a big role, very big role. At least see whether the situation right now is such that we should at least know about their emotions. Most of them, they don't even get that much space to express that aspect, because they are either labeled as being strong,
Right.
everything will be all right, and there's nothing to worry about. I mean, these are the recurring things that come to them, and probably they do get tired. So uh, it plays a huge role, I would say, because ultimately your mind does impact your body, and right now in this difficult phase you need to support your body. I mean, your mind should be able to support your body instead of taking it
Right. Yeah,
another.
Gauri, you wanted to add?
Yeah. So, probably now, when I'm talking about my journey, it sounds like I was very strong and, every day was positive. So it wasn't like that. So I had my low points, and I used to get irritated a lot. And, uh, so I remember a time when a counselor had come when I was in the hospital, and she wanted to speak to me. And I just turned her away. I was not ready to talk to her at all. Because at that time I thought like no one understands what I'm going through. So yeah, I understand that the role of counselor is important, but at times patients would just shut themselves and would not want to speak to anyone. So I went through that phase as well.
Right. And Pranay, how did you did you change your lifestyle after you had this cancer experience, or did you just go back to being the same person? What changed for you?
So yeah, obviously I take care of my health a little more, and I actually don't think so much in life now. I mean, the way life is, I just cope up with it, and I don't let things affect me. And so the thing is that I've started believing in the now. I've sort of let go of what's happened in my past and stopped thinking about the future. Not like stop, but relatively I think a little less about what's going to happen, and I concentrate on my now and just like sort of try to make the most of it in terms of whatever I'm doing and just be happy. And I've stopped looking at the outside world for happiness. I just feel that if I can make myself happy from the little things I do, I'll be in a good space.
So did you take up
So like I work with this NGO, I write on South Africa. Obviously work keeps me busy, and I want to go to South Africa this year and make my documentary. So these little joys that I'm looking forward to, and just try to piece my life together because of all this.
Okay, sounds good. Gauri, what were the changes that you made?
Yeah. So for me as well, you look at life differently, because you understand that health is the of utmost importance, and you should not fret over smaller things. And every now and then I fall off the track. It's not again always positive, but I kind of reread my own story and get that perspective back. And so yeah, I enjoy traveling on my own. I exercise, read books. So I think what I feel is that you cannot just survive cancer but thrive after it, and that is the message I want to send out to people, and that is the reason I try to share my story on these platforms.
Right, right. Aneri, anything that you'd like to add? Sorry, Pranay, go ahead.
Aparna ma'am, in this last Cancer Survivors Day that I attended as a part of VK, the NGO I work with, there was this one Victor, a person who had conquered cancer. So she was getting awarded, and she just said this one thing that I had cancer, but cancer never had me. And I thought that was like a very inspirational thing to say when you've conquered cancer. And if anyone and everyone who's undergoing cancer believes in that, now I'm sure they can come out of it.
Right.
I had just got out of cancer at that point in time last February, and I felt so inspired listening to that one piece of statement. It's
right.
So it's how people get out of it, and the kind of impact that they want to have on society. That's actually very good to know.
Okay, great. Sorry, Aneri, you have anything to add?
I think yes, everybody who's gone through this phase should probably, adaptive way to cope with it is to find meaning out of this whole journey, and see what all has it helped you build up, like your resilience. How I think that's what would make it more fruitful, the whole experience, and not store it as a bad memory or.
Right. Okay. So often patients, especially when they're going through the follow-up checkups and the first few years, the fear, the anxiety kind of persists, right? Every time you're going for a test, or every time you have a pain somewhere or something, right? You're always very, very watchful for signs that could mean that your cancer has come back. How did you cope with that phase, or how are you coping with all of that? Because for some people that can affect. It causes sleeplessness. It causes every time they have a test, the follow-up test coming up, they go through days of sleeplessness. Would Gauri, you want to start on that first?
Yeah. So I think the first few years after treatment, I went through that phase where even a small twitch on my face, I would link it to cancer. And so yeah, I've gone through those panic moments in the past. I think over time, it has got better, and now I don't panic at all. So
right. So it's just time that.
Yeah.
Okay. Pranay.
So Aparna, for me, it's just been 14 months, and so when I was out of treatment, I had to get my test done every 2 months, and now as the intervals are reducing, or they're getting, there's more time coming in between each interval, then that's sort of relaxing me a little in terms of that better things are happening. Like initially, my doctor said that you need to get a PET scan, then the PET became a CT, and now the CT is only becoming a chest X-ray. So I feel that it's going towards the better up in terms of the intervals reducing, and you're not doing those severe tests which you were doing earlier. But
right.
Yeah, the anxiety is still there before every test, and as Gauri said, maybe with time will sort of reduce.
Right. So one of the questions that's come up is, and I think to some extent you've talked about fretting, but do you feel that you can handle any issue better than your peers as you have won a huge battle? That's a question from Urvi. Gauri?
Yeah. So yeah, I remember that, at work, I always remind myself of this, that you've beaten cancer, whatever work challenge you have, that's nothing compared to it. So, Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Pranay?
Yeah, so if we've managed to conquer a life-threatening disease, then what's work?
Mm. Okay, so that's definitely a yes from both. But does it become too much where people say that to you and you've dealt with cancer, so this is nothing? Does that get irritating?
It does. It does. For me, it does because there are times when you need to act on certain things, and people say that you've conquered cancer, then this must be nothing for you. But I'm like, dude, work also gets stressful there. It's not like I've become God that I won't get stressed out of work.
Right.
So it does.
Yeah, because I think there's always this balance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And how did you work to getting back on your energies and getting back to do the things you loved? I mean, obviously you took on some new stuff, but when you were going through those low periods, how did you kind of deal with, or kind of motivate yourself? Okay, Pranay.
Oh, I don't know how to answer that because I used to just think to myself that this is a passing phase. I really didn't do anything about it. I used to feel depressed, but after some time, I used to start feeling okay. I didn't know what to do at that point in time. But what I did do was I used to read a lot of cancer survivor stories, be it celeb stories or be it normal stories on these portals, and that used to sort of inspire me.
Okay.
And then through you, I was lucky enough to have my own, which maybe might be inspiring for others now.
Right, you are. Definitely. Gauri?
Yeah. So yeah, apart from reading, books on cancer, how people had, survived, I also used to write a journal, even though it's not very regular. That really helped. And the other thing, I did without actually realizing at that time that it. So now I know it's called visualization, but at that time I was just doing it without knowing, there was a term for it. So I used to just imagine that, after completing treatment, I would go travel to Europe. I would go live in, New York, just silly things at that time. But I think that kind of had a very positive impact because I was imagining a future where I would, be cancer free and doing things that made me happy. So I feel that, once you believe in, that something will happen, that's a secret, right? That it would happen for you.
Right. Aneri, any other tips for people? I mean, I know this visualization. I know somebody who deals with her own insomnia by planning her next holidays.
I think it is more like, yes, people do. Once the treatment is over, it is to take the baby steps, explore your own self. How, like, how you would teach yourself how to drive and any new thing. So things are going to be slightly having that open mind, acceptance to it. It can be frustrating as well, getting tired or not doing things up to what you expect can be frustrating, but at the same time taking steps and being accepting of it, being open to it, that yes, you will get there, is very, very important here.
Great. Okay, I think we're pretty much the end of time. Any final bits of advice or tips for people who would be listening to this as they're coping with their cancer, or whoever else is listening? Gauri?
Yeah, I would just say that yes, I completely understand that the journey is not easy. There are a lot of days when you feel low, but if you just believe in your heart that things are going to be okay, I think that definitely helps you get through the journey. So all the best. Keep fighting.
Right. Thanks, Gauri. Pranay?
Yeah, Panna, as I wrote in my article also, so is the case in cancer and so in life. If you have the will to succeed, then failing is never an option. And I mean, we should just believe in that. Yeah.
Right. Aneri, any final closing to our listeners?
I would say that get whatever information you want from the correct source. It will help you cope better.
Mm,
And you could be coping well. It's not, but if you're not coping well, you feel that no, it is bringing you down emotionally. I would say that, look for help. Don't hide yourselves behind thinking that, I cannot be emotionally weak. It's okay to talk about it, get over it. There's nothing wrong with it. Like,
right.
everybody needs it, but if you do, you should look for it.
Right. Right. Good. So I think we've had a great conversation with our panelists. Thank you, Gauri, Pranay, and Aneri, for taking the time on a Saturday morning.